Today is Armenia's 23rd independence, and it is the 3rd anniversary of CivilNet. My guest now is UK Ambassador to Armenia, Kathy Leach. Ambassador Leach, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
It's a double celebration for us every year since the establishment of CivilNet 3 years ago. On September 21, 1991, the Armenian people overwhelmingly voted in a referendum to become an independent and democratic state. It was an interesting period of time in the 20th century. Nobody thought that the Soviet Union would collapse. Nobody thought that the new republics would be born at that time. The United Kingdom has engaged with Armenia since the early days of independence. How has that engagement been, or why was it important for the United Kingdom to be present here, specifically in Armenia?
Well, I think we all recognised in 1991 what an extraordinary moment in history it was, and how important it was to support these very new countries. In the UK we had a wonderful fund called the Know-How Fund in the early 90s, which was for all the former republics, to support them with technical advice, with practical advice, and some money as well. And that was the beginning of it, really, and we opened an embassy here in 1996 with our colleagues from DFID with an aid programme, and we've taken it from there.
From your vantage point, you have been here now for a number of years. We all know that most of the post-Soviet countries suffer from the same problems of lack of democratic institutions, corruption, and it seems that all the former republics have the same symptoms, if we can call it like that. You've been here now in Armenia. Have you seen that progress? Has the UK, will it be continuing to engage with Armenia deeper or further?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
There's no question, and I think I see a change even in the last 2.5 years that I've been here, and the various metrics you get on these international scales, the ease of doing business, freedom of the media, these different metrics, they don't tell the whole story, but they tell something, and I think Armenia has in general been improving, and has been building, for example, in the media, has been building a more pluralistic media environment, and of course CivilNet is a wonderful example of that, in contributing to the pluralism of the media here.
You know, in your daily sort of activities, in the capacity that you have, you work and meet, many Armenians, and we've sort of fallen into a rut in Armenia. We always talk about we're not moving forward, we're failing. There's this general sense of malaise and sometimes indifference, sometimes hopelessness. And you know, my previous guest just before you joined us was somebody who's involved in the processes that have taken place. And I asked him a question, and I said, are we not being too hard on ourselves? It's only been 23 years. It's how we feel about ourselves, and how does the international community, what are the expectations of the international community of a country like Armenia?
Well, I think you're right to say that people are very hard on themselves and on where they think Armenia should be by now, and it's easy to forget, sitting here now looking at Yerevan as a fairly prosperous European city, it's easy to forget how incredibly tough those early years of independence were. A war, an energy crisis, an economic crisis, huge outward migration. So I think when you consider how difficult things were, really there has been a great deal of progress. What I would say is I think perhaps those very difficult early years made people focus very much on tomorrow, on surviving today, on only not thinking further forward than tomorrow. And now that Armenia is 23 years old, perhaps the next stage is to try to lift your eyes to a further period, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ahead, and to start taking the steps economically, politically, which will ensure that progress continues.
Right. It's true. Long-term planning doesn't seem to be a forte, and it's something that we definitely need to do. I mean, taking into consideration the geographic position we find ourselves in, the unresolved conflict of the Nagorno-Karabakh issue, the continued blockade of Armenia by Turkey and Azerbaijan. So all of these things contribute to that.
Of course.
But here, for example, at CivilNet, as you said, and as I said earlier, it's our 3rd year anniversary. We started 3 years ago, and it was, there was a journalist here from Turkey who asked me a question, and what does CivilNet mean for you? And I said, it means it's a promise. It's a promise that we can do something better, that we can. Have you seen, first of all, you follow the news in Armenia. What is your take on the media environment in Armenia? Do you see that CivilNet has been able to make any kind of, I don't know, impact or change or bring something new to the table?
Oh, definitely. And I think the fact that internet media, I think you can say, is free in Armenia is a huge step forward, a huge triumph. And CivilNet definitely adds a great deal to that picture. So I think TV is really the next big issue. How to make sure that the TV environment also becomes more pluralistic, and I guess we have an example in the UK of one way to do it. We have a state supported broadcaster, but with a mandate to be independent and to reflect political views in a balanced way, and that's the kind of that's the next step again, I think, for the media in Armenia that I'd like to see.
Right, it's about plurality. You're right. Most Armenians in Armenia receive their primary source of information or news from the television still. Here at CivilNet, for example, I think 61% of those who visit our website are under the age of 35. So it is a younger generation who is using internet media more than television broadcasting. But yeah, it is an issue, and it's also about objectivity in the media.
No, absolutely, and pluralism by itself isn't enough, because you need to have journalism which teaches you, which has integrity, and which gives the viewer the confidence that people are trying their hardest to give the truth, and that's we don't unfortunately always see that in media, not just here, in all around the world. It's the hardest task for journalism to speak the best truth they know.
And that's right, the best truth, right? Yes. Because we all have our cultural baggage that we carry around, and as journalists we try very hard to be objective, and sometimes it's not always possible, but if we're true, if we are the best and true to ourselves, I think we do a much better job at it. Ambassador Leach, just one final question, if you can answer it in your capacity, what would you like to see for Armenia? You are very well aware of what's going on in the country, of the political, social, economic processes. What is the one thing that you would like to see Armenia improve on to ensure its viability and its and the empowerment of this state in the coming years and decades?
One thing,
or a couple of things.
Yeah, I think that the next big challenge is the business environment, and to give people confidence that there's a level playing field for everybody in business, that everybody, whether they're small, big, is paying their taxes, is playing by the same rules. I think to give people confidence that that's the case is the next big thing.
I think I agree with you completely. So thank you very much, Ambassador Leach, for joining us today on a Sunday to help us celebrate Armenia's 23rd independence and CivilNet's 3rd anniversary.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest was UK Ambassador to Armenia, Kathy Leach. Stay with CivilNet.